Hi, my name is Loretta. I'm a cultivator of creativity, and today I'm doing this video in relation to the video Auset posted on Lucid Living in regards to this 8-year karmic cycle and then this new 2020 sort of time of Osiris that is coming up. So I just wanted to share my own personal perspective on what I saw within the video, and the message that she was talking about the 8-year karmic loop resonated with me. I felt like it's something that's definitely being experienced by people, and I just wanted to, I saw some different, I think, angles from my perspective when she was talking about it, and I thought the additional information was really helpful because it seemed to fit in really nicely with everything that she was discussing. So on a very base level, if you watch that video, she was talking about this 8-year karmic loop that everybody's tied into, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details because she does a really good job, but it's basically relating your current experience with an 8-year experience that happened 8 years ago, and then there's a totality of 9 years, and then the 7-year cycle that we've been accustomed to hearing about. And basically, kind of in a nutshell, what she was talking about is that this year is a year of 8. 8 is really this year of transformation. And what she originally was talking about is being in this pinch time. And it's important to know that she was stating in the pinch time because it's an opportunity, if you're becoming self-aware, to break yourself out of the karmic loop that you've already been tied into. So whatever your experience was for 2019, it was whatever your experience was in 2011 is being reflected in 2019, this 8 years later. And she originally was stating that this pinch time is a great time for people to be able to kind of reset that loop, and you can fully reset that loop and put yourself into a new karmic cycle for a different kind of experience. And the first thing I was thinking when I saw it was, there are symbols everywhere. There's symbols everywhere in our world, and people always talk about that, sort of the meaning of sigils and how it gets, certain symbols kind of embedded in our unconscious mind, and then, of course, in our conscious mind when we're aware of them and we're talking about them and putting our energy into them. And the first thing I kept thinking when she was talking about it, because she kept showing this drawing, was I was like, this infinity symbol is like becoming this sigil that I'm associating with karma. And then I was like, oh man, like at first I was like, I don't know if it's not that the information doesn't resonate, but I was just like, I'm not sure I want to get caught in this infinite cycle of karma. And it just kept kind of resonating with me throughout the video. And then as I was listening to her, all I could think was, man, she keeps saying the pinch point. And I was like, well, what else would I want to do at the pinch point except to literally pinch it? So I think she was seeing the pinch point as this point where all the energies come together, and then that way, before they start their outward cycle again on the loop, that you can change it. But what I saw was literally pinching this infinity symbol in half, and I almost wanted to visualize this infinity symbol breaking into two in my mind so that I could get my conscious and subconscious mind to understand that I don't have to be tied into this 8-year karmic cycle, that I actually have the ability to pinch this infinity symbol so that my brain understands that I don't have to keep reliving this 8-year way of life, that I have an opportunity within this pinch point that we're in now to literally break that cycle forever. And we'll talk a little bit more about the new sigil embodiment in a moment, but my friend said something really important to me, and I had never really thought about it, and he just said, karma is just a program. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of blowing my mind, because I kind of just almost thought of karma as like this law that was like you could not surpass this law. Like it was always just and forever there. There was no kind of like not experiencing the karma. And when he said karma was a program to me, it immediately made me think like, oh, well, if it's a program, then I don't necessarily have to run that program. I don't have to be in that program or participate in it. And of course, you have to have, I think, the right kind of intention behind that idea. It's not supposed to be this malevolent intention where I just want to be free from the karma program so I can do whatever I want and not care how that's affecting other people. It was, how can I elevate or enlighten myself to a state of understanding that I can free myself from this karma law while also having good intention and sending out positive vibrations. And so when he said that to me, I was like, I just kept thinking like, okay, karma's a program. Like, it's not something I'm locked into forever. It is a program is changeable. A program is something that I can replace with a different program. And so when she kept saying this karmic loop, all I could think of as well was like, karma's just a program. So I don't have to be in this loop. And my state of mind might have agreed that in the past, based on old programming and things that we've already kind of been doing for a long time, that we have existed within this 8-year karma loop. But now we're at a point of breaking the loop, splitting up that infinity symbol in our mind, like literally taking it apart, so then that way our conscious and subconscious mind knows that we are not stuck in that infinite loop if we don't want to be. And I just kept thinking, okay, now I have to understand, how do I get out of this, or not get out, but how do I dissolve this karma program, and what would I do to, and like what would be replacing it, or what would be the programming basically that would end up sort of taking its place. And so I've been doing a lot of reading and listening to the discourses of Saint Germain. They really have resonated with me. But one of the most important things he said, and he doesn't delve into it a lot, but part of the teaching is, he states that you can call on the law of forgiveness as a way to transmute negative or discordant energies for any previous mistakes that you've made, or any previous experiences or actions that created negative or discordant energies. So I just kept thinking, okay, this idea of forgiveness is something that people, I think, get very hung up on. And I just want to touch briefly that when he said law of forgiveness, I just kept thinking, okay, you know what? Forgiveness is not something that we decide, like, I'm ready to give you forgiveness, or I'm ready to receive forgiveness. That's really putting the power in other people's hands. It's either you saying that you have the power to make the judgment of when somebody should be forgiven, or somebody else is doing that judgment to you when you're trying to receive it. Or sometimes you're even the person that's saying, I'm ready to receive it, and the other person might not be. But it's a placement of judgment when we kind of think that we hold that power in ourselves as human beings. And so when I read Law of Forgiveness, I just was like, oh, you know what? That's a totally different perspective. That's saying that this is a law that we call on to come and transmute these energies for us, as opposed to us feeling like we have the power to transmute them from other people. And the first thing that I thought of inside of that was, that takes some of our ego out of it. Because when you're dealing with a situation, if you've done something to somebody and you know, like if you've done something and it's made somebody else upset, or somebody's done something to you and it's made you really upset, and you get to this point and they want to come and ask for forgiveness. And when you ask for forgiveness, it's literally putting the power, like, in my hands for me to decide if I'm ready to give it to you. And then vice versa. If I'm the person that's, you know, elevated enough to be able to be like, you know what, that was really silly. It didn't need to happen. Like, I don't need to be upset about it. Now I'm going and saying, you know, I want to forgive you. I don't think it was a big deal. And now what you're doing is kind of pushing your self-power onto somebody else, saying, well, now I've decided that I'm going to just give you the forgiveness. And so it's this power struggle. It's this kind of passing this idea between the two of you, instead of doing what we really should be doing, which is self-reflection. So within this law of forgiveness, I think when you're calling on the law, so basically what he says is you call on the law. And then in order for the law to work for you, my interpretation is that you have to decide that you are worthy of it. This isn't a law where somebody else decides that you're empathetic enough, or you've been apologizing enough, or you finally have come in to enough understanding and they get to decide that you are ready or you are worthy. It is self-reflection. So it kind of ties in with this idea about always thinking our journey through life and our life experience is really about going inward. So if we somehow think that this idea of forgiveness, which a lot of people talk about as a way to start transmuting these negative energies and to get into this higher dimensional thinking. If you still think that you have that power, or somebody has that power to you, that's not going inside to do the work on the inner you to understand what's happening in your outer world. Or some people might say, doing the inner work in order to master your outer world. So self-reflection is this opportunity for us to go inside and decide that I'm ready to call on the law of forgiveness. I feel that I am worthy of this law, and I feel worthy of calling upon it to transmute these energies. So the idea of forgiveness is really not the idea of gifting something to somebody or receiving something. What you want to do is you've basically made an energetic tie, a discordant energetic tie between you and another person, or you and an experience, but a lot of times forgiveness is tied to other people. So this idea is that you want to transmute this discordant connection between the two of you. So a lot of times what we are encountering nowadays as people are kind of learning more is that one person's ready to give forgiveness, but the other person's not ready to receive it, and vice versa. So you could be the person that's like, oh, you know what, you hurt me earlier today, but it's not a big deal. Like, I forgive you. And now the other person kind of almost feels snubbed, and they're not seeing it from your perspective. And they're like, well, they're not willing to accept the forgiveness that you're trying to give. And the problem with that is you're keeping the connection. You're just trying to pass energy still through this discordant energy connection. And the idea of the law is really to transmute it, which is really just to dissolve it, to completely get rid of this connection. And then in Saint Germain's teaching, the second half of that is on top of calling on the law. And me personally, when I've been practicing it lately, I always say, I'm calling on the law of forgiveness for either me or someone else, so that their negative energies or entities or attachments can be transmuted. And then I say, I call on the law truthfully and sincerely, so that any of their discordant energies or any discordant energies that I might have created in them or between us can be healed. And I always say, me personally, in the light of God, now and forever. I believe God is just an energy source. So what I'm calling to is actually calling to this divine source energy to come, and I want that light energy to transmute this negative connection. And so when I say that, that's the first half of the law coming into order. I'm calling to this divine source to come in. I am the divine source. The divine source is me, but I'm calling on that light to transmute this negative discordant energy. You can kind of word it however you want. As long as you're calling on the law and not trying to give or receive, that's really the idea. But the important thing that he said about the second half of this law is that the second half of the law is saying, I want to send so-and-so all of the love from my divine being so that they are blessed and prosper. And so I think what that really means is it kind of assures the idea that when you're calling on this law truthfully and sincerely, that the first half is transmuting, dissolving this negative connection. And then what you have to do is try to charge this, or basically establish a new connection that is positive. So a lot of times what happens, I think, when we are trying to forgive people and somebody says, oh, I want to forgive you, or you're like want to receive forgiveness and you're asking for forgiveness and they're not ready to give it to you, is that that energetic connection is still there. So if you're someone that's like really sorry and you go and ask for forgiveness and somebody doesn't want to give it to you, it's like this discordant tie is still there. And then, but even if, say, somebody just says like, okay, I forgive you, because a lot of people will do that. Like if you apologize and say the right things, some people are kind of like, okay, like I forgive you. And maybe they're not really emotionally ready, but they like, here you are and you're kind of pouring your heart out and you're being really honest. So they make an attempt to kind of reciprocate, but it doesn't fully dissolve that tie. And so when you call on the law as an act of self-reflection and you know that you've on your end dissolved and transmuted it, and you reconnect to this person with this positive energy, it's just kind of calling out to the fact that you have transcended the idea that you decide when somebody's ready to be forgiven, or you decide that you're ready to be the receiver of forgiveness if somebody else isn't ready to kind of call on this law with you or give it to you. And it just says it doesn't matter. It's almost like it doesn't matter what somebody else's perception of the events that happen between us are. I'm calling on the law. I've self-reflected. I feel that I've done all the steps that I need to do to transmute this discordant energy, and I'm going to prove that by now establishing this new connection through love and through honestly being able to hope that this person feels blessed and prospers and, you know, hopefully learns something from this experience or is able to just dissuade these negative emotions and you guys can go back to being friends. So it takes it that next step. I think a lot of people get to that level of being able to like kind of forgive and kind of have that exchange, but it's a whole nother level when you truly on top of that say, you know what, we had this experience, but I hope that you're really blessed, because if you are and you're allowed to prosper, it'll be able to take you to, you know, new heights and being able to call on the law yourself. So it really has nothing to do with the other person. It takes all judgment out of it. And then basically you're still doing that inner work. You're doing that self-reflection, you know, so that you're able to start transmuting these energies. So what that allows you to do is there's so much discordant energy that's generated between people, between negative circumstances, between people being very different, between people's lack of empathy or lack of acceptance. And even though we're coming into this time where like more and more people, I think, are learning, you know, to be accepting of other people and, you know, that we want to be more unified, it's truly a hard thing to kind of be able to find some kind of like common ground with people when you're, you know, when people are still kind of like fighting a lot about how people should be or how things should be. You know, a lot of times I think people go through like what they call this ego death, but it's really just ego in the physical sense, your physical body, or you let go of all the material things, and you realize there's this whole other, you know, life experience available to you. But then a lot of people get like what they call spiritual ego, and then, you know, they're just like, they want to be on their path to enlightenment, and, you know, what they're doing in their work. And then it's hard to kind of come out of that and be like the kind of person that lets your spiritual ego go and say, well, I could just keep on my path and just keep ascending. But is it, you know, is it better for me to turn around and try to help the people that are still bickering and fighting, that are still trying to, you know, ascend and try to make their way up? Or do I just follow on my own path and keep going? So this law is so important. And I know that Auset in her video was talking about this year of 2019 being this 8. And what she was saying was this 8 is representative of all these trans words: transform, transmutate, transcend, transportation. And so I feel like this law, when we're talking about breaking this infinite sigil, breaking this karmic loop, saying that we don't have to exist in this infinite karmic loop anymore, it's using this law is a huge way to transform how you feel about your life experiences, to transmute negative energies. We have a lot of negative connections to past experiences in this life, past lives, with people, you know, with experiences every day. And then to be able to transcend, and the transcendence part is about not just transmuting all the energies, it's about replacing these energies with positive connections. It's basically getting rid, breaking down this old structure that has been built on these really, you know, discordant energetic connections, and then reestablishing a whole new connected network of people with love, with positive connections, with our ability to hope for other people that they live prosperous and abundant lives, because they're capable of manifesting infinite abundance in their life, and so are you. And so there's no reason at any point to not want that for someone else if you're able to call on this law truthfully and sincerely for other people, and you're really understanding that this year is about all these trans opportunities to make all this clear, you know, this clearance for yourself. She was saying it's a year of clearance. So we clear all these energies, and we transcend, and then we're really clearing so that something else can be brought in. And then, she was saying, and then so she was saying 9, which is the next upcoming year, 2020. This is a year of completion, and this kind of ties in with everyone talking about the timelines are being sealed, and this is discussions about us transcending into 5D, fifth dimension, and then of course passing through the fourth dimension. And so I think this year of 8, the using of this law is going to be so important for those who want to transcend or be transported into the fifth dimension through the fourth dimension and to not have to get stuck there. This timelines are getting sealed for that, and now is the time to start utilizing this tool so that you can break your infinite 8-year karmic loops that you've been in, and then that way you can be in your new sealed timeline for next year. And then she was talking about that there's going to be like this reset of energy in 2020. And I think that reset ties into the idea that if we can all get on board with this law of forgiveness, the reset is this reestablishment of these new energetic connections. So this means transmutation on all levels, not just like person to person with people that you know, like in your immediate life. This is transmutation of energy that exists in our human body, but this is also transmutation of energy that exists throughout our multidimensionality. So we have these multidimensional energetic connections to other lives and other places. And part of this transmutation process, specifically now, is about being able to do it here in the physical world in the third dimension, but we're also trying to transcend and transmute multidimensionally. And that kind of ties in. She was talking about this Osiris, Osar energy that is coming in next year. And what she was talking about is next year is this year of eclipse. I think there's 2 eclipses. So she was saying next year is she wrote like a eclipse energy, the sun, moon, the left, right, and she was saying the left and right eye, and I was thinking the left and right brain, and basically the whole year being in this eclipse energy state. And so that kind of tied in. I was like, whoa, that totally ties in with my sigil, because the reset, basically what I was saying is she was talking about the merging of the eclipses, and that creates sort of this eye. And then I was thinking, well, if we break infinity in half, and you have the left and the right energy, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, however you want to think about it, the positive energy that we use, the negative energy that we use, and we merge them together, the new sigil that we get for the reset year is the eye. Like when you take this infinite symbol, you break it, you break yourself free from the infinite thinking that goes along with it. Your new karmic loop is this sigil that is this eye. And all I could think was it allows people to pass up through, and it's like, for me personally, I just was like, oh, it's like your third eye's open, like you're really starting to see on another level, exist on another level. And so she was saying that the gateway, there's sort of a gateway that Osiris brings in this underworld energy. And she was talking about how the barriers that kind of separate us from the spirit world are really going to open up during this time. And all I could think was, this law, this is a great time to use this law. When we are openly connected to the spirit world, a lot of people have karmic ties and karmic loops that are tied to either past lives, and usually it's other people. So it's people that you've had these negative connections with in past lives, or people that have passed away that you had a discordant energy with that you never cleared before they passed. And this law works multidimensionally. So this law works in the third dimension, it works in the fourth dimension, it works in the fifth dimension, it works in all dimensions. So what that means is when this door is open and the barriers are down, it really allows what I would call like a healing and a release of these souls. So any of these spirits or souls that have been hanging around on earth, which there's a lot, basically these people can be released, because a lot of these people stay here because they have unfinished business. So a lot of that is stuff that is negative. If you feel like you have no unfinished business, usually that's like, you feel positive, you feel good, you go to the light and you incarnate wherever else next. So a lot of that is these negative discordant ties that they have with people that are still living, or, you know, places here, whatever it may be. And basically, we're able to use this law to transmute those negative discordant energy connections with people of the spirit realm, so that way their souls can be released and they can pass into whatever their next life experience is going to be. And then we also have those discordant energy ties dissolve, so that we're not stuck in some kind of karmic loop. Like if we were to pass and we had some kind of negative connection to a spirit that was also still hanging around here, that you would somehow get stuck in this, you know, the underworld or the astral, the spirit realm, because now you still have this unfinished business, or that you would incarnate here on earth again, and so would they, because you guys still have this karmic energy that you have to work out. So basically, this law allows you to kind of dissolve and transmute those energies as well. And then she was talking about as well about this idea of 9 and 7, and she kept saying, you know, 9 is this regenerative number, and she had kind of referenced 9 and 7 to be, in her perspective, related to Orion. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I know from some of the information that I've read that Orion energy, I think any energetic beings from any place, there's always two sides. There's always people that have sort of more masculine thinking or more feminine. There's people that like have good intention. There's people that have bad intention. There's not, like, to me, one species that is all bad or all good. I mean, you still have people within any kind of species that, you know, have different characteristics, traits. It's because no matter if you're reptilian, if you're Syrian, if you're Lyrian, if you're Orion, if you're a human, it just means that we're all in these different stages of awareness and enlightenment on this path. And so it's reflective no matter where we're incarnated. So if we're incarnated, you know, in these different solar systems, or we're incarnated here, we're all at different levels. So I don't like to group anybody together as, you know, one type of energy coming from one type of place. But I have read that, you know, a lot of our characteristic traits that are dominant and kind of like power hungry, that some of that comes from our Orion traits. And so she was saying that 7, this idea of 7, so basically she was saying that 9 is regenerative. And so then I was thinking, that kind of makes sense. It's almost like the 9s, like if you feel like you have Orion energy, part of why that you're incarnating here on Earth is to learn how to break these karmic loops of negative discordant energy. You're here to open up your solar plexus and your heart chakra so that you can release these negative dominant sort of personality traits, or, like, you know, energetic traits that you have had, this sort of mode of thinking that some of these energies carry some of these traits. And so when she was saying 9 kind of regenerates, it's the number, I think, where it's like 9 times anything still turns into itself. And so I was like, oh, maybe it almost sounds like if you're a 9, like if you're an Orion 9, you just keep like incarnating here until you learn this lesson, until you can break free from this cycle. And then she said 7 energy is like your mastery over your physical life. It is your God body status, is how she put it. And so incarnating, like, the 7 energy is our ability to master the use of our chakras. It's you know, everything in the physical world. It's understanding that you are God and God is you, and that if you believe, you know, that God is like this energy source, that you are also this divine energy source. You're a divine being. You know, we all are. And so she was saying that 8 is like this gateway. 8 is a bridge between 7 and 9. And she kept saying that 8 was basically like this opportunity to balance the scales. And so she kept referring to, you know, the underworld being open, and that part in mythology where basically you are weighing your heart. You're weighing your heart to see if it's lighter than a feather. And I was like, this ties in perfect, because a lot of the reason people have heavy hearts is because of their negative discordant connections to other people. And the only way to get past that, to unload this heavy burden, these burdens that you carry, is to be able to use this law of forgiveness properly. And then it's I think a lot of people will be able to go through this process of shedding and dissolving these discordant energies. And then it's going to be elevated for you to be able to be a person that can come out and then reestablish these new sort of love connections. But anyway, basically, the establishment, the breaking of these karmic cycles, using this law of forgiveness, basically gets you to this new sigil of this eye, this eclipse energy next year. And when you utilize that, you are able to use this 8, this bridge, as a way to balance out your 7 and 9 energy. And she was saying to put it in a state where 7 becomes 9 and 9 becomes 7. And the way that you do that, the way that you make your heart as light as the feather, is to use this law to start transmuting these negative connections. Stop thinking that you are giving forgiveness or you're receiving forgiveness. You simply transmute through self-reflection. And so I was also thinking, it's like we were talking about, and I know Terrence Howard talks about the blossoming your flower of life. And this is one of the keys to really transcending a lot of this energy. And what that is, to me, that ties into all of this is that your solar plexus is that place where you have all the emotions. That's the place of self-reflection. And that's really the opportunity to transmute. You transmute in this solar plexus. You have all these emotions, and they come and they're in your solar plexus. And then what you want to do is to be able to, the solar plexus is that place of your self-esteem, your self-worth. How do you view you? So that solar plexus energy is where you do the transmutation. It's the self-reflection for you to be able to decide when you are worthy of using the law of forgiveness. And so when you do that and you're calling on the law and you're able to actually truly transmute energy, then the energy passes through your solar plexus and it goes into your heart. And now when you're able to make this new connection, the second half of this law, where you send someone all the love from your divine being, passing, this divine energy source, and you charge it with the idea of blessing and prospering someone, that sort of like blows up in your heart chakra. And that's really the energy, to me, that blossoms this flower of life, these two energetic centers. And when we're talking about that in relation to like Orion energy and balancing, and we're talking about using that, all I could think was too, because she was saying it's the body of Osiris merging with the soul of Ra. And so Ra is like this light body, and Osiris is the the body of this keeper of the underworld. And all I could think was, to me, my perspective is that we all have self-reflections, because of our multidimensionality. There's reflections of us that live in other places of the galaxy, of the universe. And so I was like, part of this, especially with the Orion tie, is that there is a part of your soul, your oversoul, that lives in Orion life. And what this means is that your soul here, when you are able to blossom this flower of life and use this breaking of the karmic scales as a bridge to balance your Orion energy, that's part of it. We're not just transcending and healing on a human level here, but we're making that connection during next year's reset year in the eclipse energy, for that energy, for that lesson, for that healing to happen on a level for our bodies and our energies that exist within Orion and the energy there. And she was saying, she actually referenced this other, I think it was show, where this girl got a new heart, and then basically she had to like deal with all the karma that was tied to this new heart, because it wasn't her heart. And basically all I was thinking is, if you have energy that you feel is star-seeded from another place, or like what she was saying, like from Orion, basically you're dealing with the karma that is tied to the biological DNA of the physical heart inside your body here. But you also have an energetic heart that is tied to other starseeds in other places. So part of that energy, especially with Orion people, is that the lesson is, you're not just trying to deal with the karma of the physical heart of here, which is part of this law of forgiveness, part of this transcendence, part of us trying to get into the fifth dimension. You're healing and transmuting the energy on this other heart. So this energetic heart connection that you're going to have during this eclipse energy, you get to transmute energy for that Orion part of yourself, and which is finally what you're trying to do in your balance between the 7 and the 9. So, and she was saying 2020, year of 2020, the reset, and I think it was 2020, perfect vision. And this is the sigil that I was thinking would be created for this new and upcoming year. So timelines are sealing. It's the opportunity now to grab a hold of this kind of information and start utilizing it. 2020 is the year of perfect vision. It is the year that we break this sigil and we make this eye. And then once you blossom the flower of light, your energy can move up through your throat chakra and you're able to communicate things. And then you're really able to start seeing with your third eye clearly everything. And it's not just things here in this dimension. You're starting to see stuff multidimensionally. And part of that too is I think when people start using this law, or if you're able to call on this law and you're able to start using it, if you're only able to get through the first half, which a lot of people are, I think some of that is going to be what people have been referring to. Some people kind of still getting locked into this fourth dimension and not being able to raise their vibration fully to the fifth. It doesn't mean that you'll never get there, but it just means that there's kind of an opportunity. It's almost like this eighth year is that bridge for us to bridge directly from third into the fifth. But you have to be able to, like I said, blossom that flower by using both halves of this law. And if you are, then you'll be able to go straight into the fifth dimension. And the key is both halves of the law and being able to do it, with your heart open and honestly and sincerely. But if you're only able to get through the first half of the law, it's still a great step. But I think that's going to be, from my perspective, the kind of people that kind of get stuck in the fourth dimension and they're not fully transcended into the fifth dimension yet. It means that they are becoming more self-aware. And they're able, they kind of understand how it works, but they're not able to fully blossom that flower. They're not able to fully feel the true emotions of being able to do that. And then I think it's important also to be able to come back. And so for people that know that they're already existing in the fifth dimension, it's not just like, put on your blinders and then shoot for the next dimension. It's about, now that you've established these love connections to these other people who you hope that you wanted to send blessings and a prosperous life. It's about charging these connections and helping these people and understanding that, there's this whole network of 5D for beings that really are at a certain level, but we're still connected, we're still connected to these other people. And it's important, I think, to as part of your journey as a person to know when to be able to turn around and say, the knowledge that I have is the key for helping other people to unlock this door, or the person that I am, I can bring these experiences to these other people to help them unlock the door. So a lot of that is, understanding that we are a community here, and it's helping people multidimensionally, but it's also about raising the whole Earth's vibration. And it's not about just being a select group of people and like finding your tribe and then like you and your tribe like shooting off to some other place. It's about, once you find your tribe and you can make connections with people, it's really to, how can now your group have a bigger effect? It's like saying, if you wanted to go, be a voice for something, just one person against something really big doesn't make a difference. But if you have thousands of voices against something, it starts to have a bigger impact. So when we come together as tribes and we can start teaching people about stuff like the law of forgiveness, and we can just instill positive interactions and experiences with people so we don't create more reasons to have to use this, then what that is our vibration together, it's just amplified. And then that way, that frequency, just like that vibration, when it's that amplified with so many people, just integrates itself into some of these other people. It's just almost like unavoidable. It just kind of like seep right in is kind of how I imagine it. But she kind of said at the end of the part that I watched, and I'll probably make another video for it because I don't want to be too long, but she was talking about how we as individuals can be, it's like this calm water, and you're the person that sticks your finger in. And she was originally talking about at the pinch point to create a new cycle is that like you want to basically create a new ripple. And all I could think was the best thing to do, like when you break this cycle and you're able to blossom this flower, what you want to do is release the water. And by that, that means when we're transmuting negative discordant energies by using the law of forgiveness, it's so emotional. And in the past, we've always been taught that it's, like this shame thing with releasing emotions, especially when it's crying and it's sensitive stuff. And crying is so important. And I was thinking the other day, and I'm going to do a separate video on this, but the whole reason your tears are salty is because your body is cleansing the negative energy as it comes out of you. So when you feel negative or you have these discordant energies and it like affects and then it manifests in your physical body as tears, what that is that negative energy is basically it's coming through your physical body. Your body is using salt. So basically that negative energy goes into this water, and because it's salt water, it basically is transmuting and cleansing that negative energy. And then when you cry it out, you're able to release it. And you're not just releasing the physical manifestation, you're literally releasing the emotional, the energetic, discordant energy that comes along with it. So a lot of people feel a lot of shame about crying. A lot of people hold back, and I feel like every time you hold back, what that does is it like builds up this pool of water inside you. The whole reason you feel like you're drowning in your emotions is it's like this water, it's this sort of like etheric water that builds up inside you because you're not releasing it. So it's like every time you don't cry, it's like you're crying inside. And that water fills up and that water fills up. And I was thinking, when it rains a little bit inside of you, it's you get a nice, bright, good day the next day and the water dries, no problem. If you have something really horrible happen to you and it's just downpouring inside of you because you're not releasing it, you get wet, you feel the reverberation of that negative experience for days after it. So that's you hanging out. And then when you do it so much, or you just have a flood because something really traumatic happens to you, but you don't release it, it's all this water built up inside. And then you do what they say is drowning in your emotions. And then instead of you saying, you know what, okay, I'm just going to try to like make this different ripple in the water in order for me to change how I feel about things. What you want to do is know, from the mastery of this 7 energy, that you're a god body or goddess body, and you have the ability to pull a plug and release that water. It doesn't even have to be there. The ripple in the water is actually a disturbance. Like when even you're talking about throwing a rock in a pond, the ripple, we call that a disturbance. And that disturbance is a disturbance to your otherwise calm state of being, your calm state of mind. So if you're thinking about this, it's like calm surface of water and you're making ripples, it's actually causing a disturbance. And there's a way, I think, for people to sort of quell the disturbance and you just have a calm water, but it's transcendent to understand that you have the ability to just get rid of it. And so what that is when you get into the, if you're in the sacral chakra and the solar chakra, you cry, you release it. So when you're calling on this law and you're working with other people and you're opening up to people, don't be afraid to be emotional. Don't be afraid to let it out. When you cry, you're going to release it. Your body is going to release all this built up energy. When you call on the law of forgiveness for people that you've known in the past, for past previous mistakes or past experiences or past spirits, whatever it is in the past, you're going to release any of that built up pooled emotions that are inside of you. So you want to be able to let that go and don't hold that in. Do it in a space where you feel comfortable, so then that way you're able to release it when it's ready to be released. I think that's part of the other way of really making it work is doing it when it's the right time. Don't hold back. Don't let these energies get stuck inside you because your body's telling you got to let it go and you're just like, I'm not in a proper place to be able to do it. If somebody makes you feel embarrassed or shameful about crying, shame on them. You have to be able to get to this level of being able to transmute these energies No matter what anybody else thinks, you know, somebody else is making it, that's them being judgmental, and they're not getting anywhere. Those people are going to get stuck in the third dimension or the fourth dimension, and they're not going to be able to bridge into the 5D. So anyway, I just wanted to make this video because I thought it integrated really nicely. A lot of my main point was actually about pinching this infinite karmic cycle and releasing yourself of this karmic loop by using the law of forgiveness to pinch it in half, to break it into these two pieces. And then when we come into next year, we're going to be basically merging that. That's going to be remerged as we're all working on it. And it creates this new sigil of the eye. And that is perfect vision for 2020. It's for us to be able to see clearly the path that is sort of laid before us that allows us to be able to do all this transformative work. 9 is that year of completion, when we are be able to sort of complete all of that work and sort of completely understand how we're able to handle any of these situations or experiences if they come up again as we travel through this 2020 year. We're balancing out the scales using this gateway 8. Using the break and the new sigil in order to be able to, I shouldn't even say new sigil, but just, you know, if you have to think of some kind of symbol, that would be the one I would say. But then using that, releasing all of these discordant energies is what's going to allow you, and releasing the discordant energy is really releasing you of any karmic ties with people or situations, or like I said, you can call on the law to correct any previous mistakes of anything that you've had. But when you do that, you break all those ties and you dissolve and transmute that energy, that's what allows you to have a heart that is light as a feather. Allowing that energy to pass up through, not allowing that energy to get stuck. And the way to release a lot of that is through emoting, through crying, being okay with it. And then working on doing these little details that free us from these things that seem almost passive, but feeding our ego in any way by deciding that we give, we receive, we decide when to receive this forgiveness, knowing that this is a law that works, going inside to be able to do the work so the inner work is reflected into our outer world. So anyway, I hope the video was really helpful. I was trying to make it really short, so I was talking really fast. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you haven't watched Auset's video on the karmic loop and the Osiris energy that's kind of coming in with next year, please do, and then this video will probably make a lot more sense. And I am filled with gratitude for the time that we have shared. I'll see you later.